Okay, so in this session, we are discussing about multi-dimensional array. As the name itself suggests, there will be two dimensions or more than one dimension. There can be two-dimension array, there can be three-dimension array, but there is no restriction. It can be four-dimension, five-dimension. But usually, we require in programs two-dimensional array. Two-dimensional array are very oftenly used, very frequently used. Three-dimensional array are also used, but in very less situations. So for the syntax of two-dimensional array, while declaring the two-dimensional array, we have to use two brackets. Like in single-dimensional array, we're using only one bracket. Similarly, for two-dimensional array, we have to use two brackets, and for three-dimensional array, we have to use three brackets. And then you can concentrate on this line. In two-dimensional array, when we are mentioning that it is the name of the array is matrix, it has two dimension, and then we give the number of rows that will be there and number of columns that will be there. So in the diagram also you can see there are three rows and the three columns. The rows starts with zero index and the column also starts with zero index. In single dimensional array, like we have already discussed in the previous session, there was only one index that was starting from zero, and the last index was less than the size minus one. It is equals to the size minus one. But here you can see for row there are three rows, so it is starting from zero, then one, then two. Similarly, there are three columns, so the column is also starting from 0, 1, and 2. For any particular value, you can see for any particular value, there is for the first cell, you can see the value will be 0, 0. The second will be 0, 1. Here you can see 0 is representing the row number and the second value is representing the column number. Similarly, for the cell X02, 0 is the row number and 2 is the column number. If we come to this the row number one, that is row is equals to one. So it is row number one, column number zero, row number one, column number one, row number one, column number two. This is how we usually access or represent each cell of the array. So for in this example, the name of the array is matrix. Here, the name of the array is matrix, and it will have three rows and three columns. Suppose the name of the array is X. It can be anything. Suppose it is X, then it will be represented like this, as it is being shown in the as it is being shown on the screen. So in this program, we have two brackets. So two bracket means there will be two dimension. First bracket represents the row and second bracket represents the column. Now, when we initialize this, so there are two set of values. First set of value is for the first row and second set of value is for the second row. So there are in the first row there are two values, so there will be two columns. In the second row also there are two values, so there are two columns. That means this array is of uh, 2 cross 2. There are two rows and two columns. Now to print the value on the screen, you can see the output here. This is what we want to print. So for this situation, what we need is a nested loop. First loop represents the number of rows. The second loop represents the number of columns. Now, when this loop will start, I will be 0. So 0 is less than 2, condition is true. So it will come inside the second loop. Here, j will be 0. So at this point, I is 0, j is 0. So it will print the value of 0, 0, row number 0, column number 0. So this value will be printed. Now the inner loop will increment the value of j. So when the inner loop will increment the value of j, the value of j will become 1. But I is still 0. So it will print 0, 1. So 0, 1 will be this value. Similarly, when j plus plus will become 2, so this loop will finish. It will come out. It will change the line. and then it will go back to the outer loop. This is the outer loop. So here again, I plus plus will increase the value. So it will come to the second row. In the second row, we again start with column 0, then column 1. So for each row, there are number of columns that is being printed. So for this is for uh, row and this is for column. So for each row, this loop will execute two times. So for I is equals to 0, this loop will execute two times. So first time the value of I is 0, value of j is 0. Next time value of I is 0, value of j is 1. So it will print the first value, all values of the first row. Then the I plus plus will increase the row number. In this case, what will happen? That the row will change. So it will come to the second row. Now in second row again, the processing has to start from 0th column and then the first column. So j will be 0 first time. So I is the row is changed for first column and then j plus plus will make it second column. So in this way, this output will be printed. We can understand it in this program, the same program here. We have two-dimensional array. This is 2 cross 2. Now, A00 will have, this is for the 0th row, that is the first row, and this is for the second row. So for the first row, the two values are 1, 1. For the second row, the two values are 2, 2. Now, this is stored in the memory. To print this, what we have to do, we have to make use of two loop. First loop is for row, and inside this row we have to print the columns. So this is for the columns. So first time when it will reach here, the value of I will be 0, j will be 0. Now the value of j will increase. So when the value of j will increase, the j will become 1. So this 1 1 you can see here, this 1 1 will be printed. Now, when the value of j will increase, it will become 2, so it will come out of the loop. Once it come out of the inner loop, first row is already printed. This first row is printed. So what we do, we have to change this line. So the line gets changed. Now, when it comes to the outer loop, this loop, what will happen? I will increase. So when I will increase, it will become 1. So now this these two values has to be processed. For same value of I equals to 1, j has to be 0 first time and then j has to be 1. So the inner loop, first time j will again start with 0 and then it will 1. So 1 0 value 2 will be printed, 1 1 value 2 will be printed. So this is how we can access and print. Again, you can see here, we have here in this case, we are declaring the array and we are initializing it. Here in this case, first we are declaring the array, then we are initializing it. This is being done in 2 steps. Now, suppose we have no, it is a 2-dimensional array. So it is for the first row, this for the second row, this for the third row. Number of rows is, how many rows are there? This is one row, this is second row, this is third row. And for each row, how many values are there? There are three values, three values, three values. So in this, now you can, let us see here. In this example, the name of the array is ARR. It has 2 dimension since there are 2 brackets. So in first is the number of rows. So how we are deciding how many rows are there? This is row number 1. Then this is row number 2. Then this is row number 3. Each start and end bracket represents 1 row. So there are 3 start and end. So there will be 3 rows. So there are 3 rows and each row has again 3 values. So there are 3 columns. So it is a 3 cross 3 this way. Now we have to print this. We want this output 1 1 1 first row, then second row, then third row. So for this we need 2 loop. First loop will be printing the values of the first loop is for representing a row. So I is equals to 0. So when I is equals to 0, this will enter this loop, then j will be 0. So 0, 0 is this value. Now j plus plus will come here. Then again j plus plus will come here. So the inner loop will complete. Now the line will change, and I plus plus will come in the this uh, section. So J0, J1, J2 will print this row. Next time I plus plus will move here. So this time what will happen? J is 0, this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. So this will be printed. So this is how we print the array. Now there are two situations. Let us try to understand once again. First of all, in two-dimension array, there has to be two brackets. In three-dimension array, we have to have three brackets. Now, when we are declaring array, at the same time, we can initialize it, like here and in this program here. Then there's another method. You can declare once and then you can initialize it like this here. And then to process, we always require this number of loops. Uh, if it is a two-dimensional array, we'll require two loops. If it is a three-dimensional array, we'll require three loops. If it is a one-dimensional array, we require only one loop. You must be remembering that in the previous session, there was we discussed programs based on single-dimensional array. So there we were using only one loop. In two-dimensional array, the first loop represents number of rows and this represents number of columns. This is how the programs are processed. And now suppose we have a three-dimensional array, this, and we want to print the diagonal elements, the forward diagonal and the backward diagonal, or the sum of these rows. So we can write programs for all those things. Now here we are printing all values of the array. Now you can see that in case of forward diagonal, the value of here, the first value is 0, 0, then this is 1, 1, then this is 2, 2. You can also see here in this section, this is the forward diagonal. So the row and column is same, row and column is same, row and column is same. So if we here in this before this, if we write an if statement and mention that if I is equals to j, then only this is to be printed, then it will print the forward diagonal, the values that are on this diagonal. And to print all the rows, what we do, suppose we want to print only row number 1. So what we do, if I is equals to 1. So if I is equals to 1, see here, I is equals to 1, I is equals to 1, I equals to 1. So it will print all values of the first row. Now suppose we want to print the value of row 2, then we have to mention if I is equals to 2. So it will print only these values. Now suppose we want to print the column. So in the case of column, what we have to do, if j is equals to 0. So if j is equals to 0, first column will print. If we want to print in the second column, here j, value of j will be 1, and here value of j will be 2. So in the same program, here if we add one statement before the print, and if we write that, let me show you. Only one statement is required. If I equals to j, and then we print system. So before this statement, if we write if I is equals to j, so what will happen? Only those values will be printed where I and j are same. So the forward diagonal values will be printed. Now, if we write I is equals to 0, then what will happen? First row will be printed. If I is equals to 1, then second row will be printed. If I is equals to 2, then third row will be printed. Similarly, if we mention that j is equals to 0. So first all values of first column will be printed. J is equals to 1. Then all values of the second column will be printed. And here it will print all values of the third column. So only one statement, if we add here a conditional statement, it can check which value is to be printed. Right now in this program, there are no conditions. So it will be printing all the values. Similarly, we can manipulate differently as per situation. A different program has different requirement, and then we can print the values accordingly. So this is all about multi-dimensional array. What we want to know is multi-dimensional array is having more than one dimension. And when we declare multi-dimensional array, then we need number of brackets for 2 dimension, for 3 dimension this way. And for processing, we need nested loop, one for the first dimension, then for the second dimension. If it is a 2 dimension, it will be ij. If it is 3 dimension, it will be ij and k, and so on. In this way we process. Now try to uh, go through this and try to understand first how these programs are executing, and then we can have more sessions on this to understand. But array is one of the very important topic, because based on array, there are so many programs that requires to be uh, done when we move on with a larger section of the program.